What is going on, Pats Nation? You guys already know who it is. It's your boy Colby with Patriots Global back here with another video. And today, my friends, we are going to be recapping the New England Patriots mandatory day one of minicamp. We finally got OTAs out of the way. We recapped every day that was open to the media for OTAs. So if you want to get caught up on some of the expectations as we head into minicamp, make sure you guys go ahead and check that out. Winners and losers from OTAs will be dropping here within the next couple of days. So that's something that you guys can watch. But now we have mandatory minicamp, right? And this is what is going to be the next ramp up after OTAs and right before training camp. This is going to be where everybody gets together. Like I said, it is mandatory. It's not optional like OTAs, but everybody gets together and they practice for what's going to be 2 days, not 3, but we'll get into that. And then they're off for the next month before we start training camp. So let's just hop into today's recap. Guys, minicamp is truly one of my favorite times of the year because it's our first look at the team completely together, at least for the most part. You know, a couple of guys are still going to be absent because of injuries or whatnot. But for the most part, if you do not attend mandatory minicamp, you're going to get fined. So the majority of guys are usually going to show up to this thing. And it's our first real look, you know, at what to expect from the Patriots as we head into training camp and then training camp leading us into the preseason and, of course, the regular season. So here on day one for Patriots minicamp, the guys that were absent or just not practicing were Kendrick Bourne, Cole Strange, Jake Andrews, Josh Uche, JaLynn and Sione Takitaki. Kendrick Bourne, we've covered this during the OTAs. We know that he's going to be out all of spring practices. We're hoping that he'll be back by the start of training camp, or at least some point throughout training camp. Cole Strange, he's probably not even going to start the season, so nothing to really take away there. Jake Andrews, I mean, this is something that we saw in OTAs also, him not being present. At some point, he was dealing with an injury. It looked like he got nicked up at some point already early on in the offseason process. And unfortunately, because of the injury of Jake Andrews, the Patriots are already looking for that backup center, which already in itself isn't good for Jake Andrews, second-year player who really didn't get any time in year one, and now year two is dealing with injuries. He could be on the bubble. He could be on the outside looking in if he can't get back on the practice field, because the Patriots are already putting other offensive linemen at center to try to figure out who that backup center is going to be if Jake Andrews is not going to be ready to go, which would be a major, major loss to the Patriots. Josh Uche sounds like he's dealing with an injury. JaLynn, he's been dealing with an injury all offseason. Sounds like it's something that carried over from the 2023 season. And then Sione Takitaki, kind of the same thing as JaLynn. Sounds like something got nicked up towards the end of the season with the Cleveland Browns, and that's something that's kind of carrying over here to the offseason. Sione Takitaki does still go to Patriots practice. He's just in street clothes, and he hasn't actually participated. Him taking over that Mack Wilson role as that third down linebacker, there's a true need for Sione Takitaki, and there's a real role for him in this defense, hoping that he's going to be able to get back by the start of training camp in just a little bit over a month, because not practicing with the team, you know, they're going to need to figure out who that third down linebacker is going to be if Sione Takitaki is just not ready to start. But as for the guys that returned today, Michael Onwenu, Chuks Okorafor, Zuri Henry. Now, Zuri Henry, the UDFA, who's a strict left tackle. We didn't see him at rookie minicamp. We didn't see him at all during OTAs. We were talking about what's going on. He finally shows up for mandatory minicamp, so that's great to see. Matthew Judon here and present for the New England Patriots in mandatory minicamp. No real surprise, because he did say, hey, you know, he's not trying to lose any money. He was going to show up to minicamp no matter where the contract was at, but you would have thought that he would have been a hold in, not a hold out, but he goes to practice, but he just doesn't actually practice. He's there, but he's not practicing. This is something that he did last year throughout minicamp and training camp when he wasn't happy with his contract. So the fact that he was there and practicing, despite not being happy with that contract, maybe he knows something we don't, and maybe a contract extension is looming for him in the background. Now, Davon Godchaux, this is another one, right? This is another one where, you know, he's not been very happy with his contract, and he might be somebody who holds in to try to get that contract extension. Not that I agree with it, but with the Patriots giving out several extensions, he might be someone who's looking for that as he's in contract year. Daniel Aquale returned, Jonathan Jones returned, and Marcus Jones returned. As for the guys that were practicing but were limited, you got Terrell Jennings, Javon Baker, who we know got nicked up, I think, during the second OTA practice that was open to the media. So that's something to watch. Devon Godshaw, Marcellus Dial, another rookie who got injured at some point during the OTAs, and then Caleb Ford Dement also. Patriots had a lot of guests in the building today and a lot of prominent guests. So they had James White in the building, Julian Edelman, and Vince Wilfork. I mean, when it comes to the offensive side of the ball and defense side of the ball, it doesn't get much better than having mentors with guys of that caliber, right? So great to see those guys in the building again. Overall, again, it's minicamp. We're not wrapping up with contact or anything like that. It's a step above OTA practices, but it's a step below what we should expect from training camp. Overall, it was shorts, it was shells, no pads, no contact. The Patriots did, although, allow referees to join the practice today. Drake Maye said that before practice, he wanted the refs to be very tough on the Patriots players today because he said that so far this offseason, throughout like OTAs and whatnot, he has seen a lot of holding, and that's something that he wants to be coached out as, you know, we start to enter and get closer to this upcoming season. Now, Michael Jordan, the offensive guard, I want to say, he was ejected late in practice for getting into it with Tristan Hill. No punches were thrown, but he did still get ejected. We know that that is something that Drake Maye is not going to stand for. He wants team building, play for the guys next to you, you know, not having kind of that animosity towards each other. But moving on to the quarterbacks here, 11 on 11s. Jacoby Brissett was 9 for 16. Drake Maye was 12 for 16. Bailey Zappi was 1 for 4 with an interception, and Joe Milton was 3 for 5. Moving on to 7 on 7s, Jacoby Brissett was 6 for 10. Drake Maye was 6 for 7, and Bailey Zappi was 5 for 7. We're going to get into it a little bit more, but I have to say, from what was reported, Drake Maye had himself one heck of a day. And of course, day one of minicamp too, where, you know, you're, for the most part, your starting offense is going to be there. You don't have some players, obviously like Kendrick Bourne, who's going to be arguably their number one wide receiver this upcoming season. You know, he wasn't there, but on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, this is as close to the Patriots game day roster as we have seen so far this offseason, and it was the best day of practice that we have seen so far from Drake Maye. He went 3 for 3 with 3 touchdowns in the last 7 on 7 period from what was reported. Overall, really, really good day. In terms of the quarterback reps order, it was Jacoby Brissett, Drake Maye, Bailey Zappi, and Joe Milton. That was one of the biggest questions we had as we entered mandatory minicamp, because in the beginning of OTAs, we saw that Drake Maye was quarterback 3 with Bailey Zappi being quarterback 2. Towards the end, we saw that being reversed, and we said, is that just a temporary thing, or is that something that's going to stay? And it looks like, you know, Drake Maye was never going to be gifted quarterback 1 or quarterback 2. He was going to have to earn his spot, and it looks like he has finally done so. Overall, all the quarterbacks got a chance at they got a chance at an end of the game situation. There was 1:30 on the clock. They essentially had to drive down the field and win the game, right? Game day situation. It was said that Jacoby Brissett, Drake Maye, and Joe Milton all had a turnover on downs where Bailey Zappi had an interception. So unfortunately, nobody was able to convert and drive the team down the field on a must-have it game-winning drive. A little bit more here about Drake Maye, though. He threw a dot to Jaheim Bell in 7 on 7s for a touchdown. He was supposedly threw the ball right down the seam with really, really good anticipation. Really no surprise there. This is what Drake Maye does. He loves his tight ends, and the best part of his game is operating in the middle of the field down the seam. He said that's where he loves to operate, and so far that's definitely been seen. That's why, watch out. I mean, Jaheim Bell, Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, those guys I think are going to be heavily involved this upcoming season. Like I said, though, overall, really great day for Drake Maye. He was one of the best players on the field today, if not the best player. He was in command. He was accurate, made several different types of throws, and overall just a lot fewer negatives than we've seen from him in the past. There wasn't a whole lot of downfield throws overall from any of these quarterbacks in the passing game, but it is still early on in the process, and this is usually something that we see kind of ramp up as time goes. Real quick, guys, I want to give a shout out to the sponsors of this channel over at Aura. If you guys want to, one, support the channel, this is one of the best ways at doing so. But two, if you want to keep yourself safe, your family safe, your loved ones safe, then go ahead and check out the link in the description box below and pinned in the comment section below where you can get this. A free 14-day, that is 2 weeks free with Aura if you sign up with the link in the description box or pinned in the comment section below. What Aura is an identity protection service. So if you think about it, a lot of the threats that we're used to facing, right? Like bank robberies or whatnot, home invasions, we take those things very, very seriously. A lot of us have, home security systems. But in today's modern day of what the world has become, the threats we face are actually online. And the threats we face, unfortunately, are the ones that we do not see. What Aura is going to do is they're going to scan the internet. They're going to scan the black web, and they're going to make sure that none of your private information is being utilized. Did you know that your full name, your email, your phone number, your social security number, your bank account information, all of that information could be out on the web right now without your public knowledge? You know, when you get those messages saying something's wrong with your FedEx shippage, and you're like, wait, I didn't sign up for that. Or you're getting those robocalls. That's because your private information is being utilized without your knowledge. When you sign up for that 14-day free trial with Aura, they will scan the internet and make sure that none of your private information is being used. And if they see it being used, they'll notify you and ask you if you want it deleted. So keep you, yourself, your friends, your family, your loved ones all safe, and just go ahead and sign up for Aura. It's a free 14-day free trial. Get peace of mind and support the channel. And before we actually continue to move on to the other positions, there is one more thing that I do want to add to the quarterbacks, or really just the offense in general. And that was the top targets today from minicamp. Now, this wasn't with just Drake Maye or Jacoby Brissett. This was kind of just in general how the receivers or these offensive weapons were utilized. So the player that actually was the most consistent, who was targeted the most today, was, believe it or not, running back JaMycal Hasty. JaMycal Hasty went 5 for 7 today in the receiving game. Then it was led up second by Jalen Reagor, who was 5 for 6. Third place came Hunter Henry, who was 4 for 6. Then Juju Smith-Schuster, who was 4 for 5. Jaheim Bell, who was also 4 for 5. And then KJ Osborne, who was 2 for 5. I'll get him to when I talk about the wide receivers, because I'm getting a little bit concerned, a little bit concerned here about KJ Osborne, but there was no news on the running back. So let's just get into the wide receivers. JaLynn Polk had a pair of touchdowns in 7-on-7s today, one from Drake Maye, one from Bailey Zappi. He was involved again quite a bit with the starting offense so far. Also his best practice so far as a New England Patriot. I mean, it doesn't matter what quarterback we've seen with JaLynn Polk. He continues to show out practice and practice, no matter who the quarterback is. If it's the first team offense, if it's the second team offense, he's doing quite literally everything that he needs to do. And he's more of like a pads on, hands on you contact type of guy. And that hasn't even happened yet. These are the type of practices where if JaLynn Polk was quiet or not showing out or was struggling, you would understand, because this isn't his part of the game. His part of the game is when the pads come on. So I'm more than excited to see, the pads come on and what training camp's going to be like when those are JaLynn Polk type of practices, because he's really been showing out as it is. Moving on, though, to Demario Douglas. He had a slick diving catch for a touchdown on a throw from Jacoby Brissett. Afterwards, let out a big, big yell. He continues to get open and continues to get a lot of attention from these quarterbacks. Speaking of a second-year wide receiver, Kayshon Boutte getting in the mix here a little bit too. He hauled in a touchdown from Bailey Zappi today in 7-on-7s. Later, had another one from Drake Maye in 11-on-11s. Another good showing from him. I think this is like the second good showing from him. He's going to need to keep this up if he wants to make a roster spot, or honestly, even be a trade candidate and just not get cut as we enter training camp. Like I said, though, I am a little bit concerned for KJ Osborne. I think that he's someone that is so underrated in this offense. He's not talked about enough, consistently putting up like 600-700 yard seasons with the Vikings. I really like that move this offseason, but he has had a really, really hard time actually catching the ball. And this is something that we've heard several times throughout practice so far. And the best way to get yourself cut is if you cannot catch the ball. This is, believe it or not, a stacked wide receiver core. Now, when I say stacked, I don't mean one of the best in the NFL, but there's a lot of number twos, a lot of number threes, a lot of number fours, a lot of number fives, a lot of guys fighting to be the last guys on this roster. And if maybe Juju Smith-Schuster ends up looking better than KJ Osborne, maybe he's on the outside looking in. He is someone that, as we enter training camp, is going to need to have a good showing. But let's move on to the tight ends here. LaMichael Petway had a drop today. Jaheim Bell was a common target today for Joe Milton in 2-minute drills. Speaking of LaMichael Petway, he also had a touchdown catch from Drake Maye today in 11-on-11. So, I mean, yet again, we are hearing that Drake Maye really utilizing these tight ends up the seam, operating in the middle of the field, loves those big targets in the middle. As for the offensive line, pass protection was much, much better today than what we saw the final day of OTAs that was open to the media, where it really struggled. A lot of fewer sacks compared to recent practices that we've seen so far this offseason. That also makes a ton of sense. You got Michael Onwenu back. You got Chuks Okorafor back. So when you have a lot more of your starting lineup, it makes sense that the O-line was going to look a lot better. Now, Michael Onwenu spent a lot of time at right guard, while Caden Wallace, the rookie third-round pick, who the Patriots were saying they were going to put as a left tackle, was at right tackle this practice. This is a storyline that I'm going to continue to watch throughout minicamp, but this is also a storyline that I'm going to watch as we enter training camp, because, this is the second consecutive practice, open to the media, of course, that we have seen Caden Wallace repping at right tackle. Is the plan for Caden Wallace to now switch to right tackle and play the primary position he played at Penn State? Or are we still trying to transfer him over to the left side? Because if that's the case, we should be getting him as much reps as possible to play over on the left side. Because who knows what's going to happen with Chuks Okorafor. Maybe he plays terrible. Maybe he gets injured. You're going to need a guy to step up as that second left tackle. And you would assume that that's Caden Wallace, but multiple practices now where we've heard that he's practicing as a right tackle and not a left tackle. So definitely something to keep an eye on. No news on the Patriots defensive line, really no news on the linebackers, which makes a lot of sense because most of those linebackers are injured. But as for the cornerbacks, Christian Gonzalez, Isaiah Bolden, and Azazi Hearn. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I think he was a UDFA addition. They all had pass breakups today. Overall, good showing for Christian Gonzalez. Christian Gonzalez has just been like that quiet number one cornerback, just doing everything that he's asked of. So although we aren't hearing a lot of Christian Gonzalez, that's a good thing. When you're not hearing about a cornerback, that's a good thing because they're doing their job. But moving on to the safeties, Kyle Duggar having another good practice. He has an interception. I believe that's now 2 or 3 interceptions that we've actually heard of when the practices were open to the media. So really good offseason for him so far. Jabril Peppers, Marte Mapu, and Brendan Scholar all had pass breakups today. And Kyle Duggar, on that interception, jumped a stick route on a throw from Bailey Zappi over the middle that would have been a pick six if it was a regular game. And then lastly here, we did get a little bit of news on the Chad Ryland experiment, the kicker experiment. And let me tell you, so far it sounds like Chad Ryland has not progressed whatsoever. And exactly what we saw last season is the exact same thing we're getting so far throughout practice. Chad Ryland went 2 for 4 on his kicks to end practice today. He had makes from 32, but then had misses from 37 and 47. Joey Sly, the kicker that the Patriots brought in as competition for Chad Ryland, went a perfect 4 for 4. Ryland later on made one from 52. So again, it's just that inconsistency where, he's going to miss from 37, but then he's going to knock it in for 52. At the end of the day, though, the Patriots want consistency. And that was the best thing about, Nick Folk. And that's why they kept Nick Folk for so long, was because, you're not really going to trust him to kick from like 50 plus yards. But if it's, 40, 45, maybe even 48, you're going to trust him to go out there, and you're going to really rely on the fact that he's going to make the majority of his kicks also. It's consistency over how far you could potentially make a field goal at the end of the day. So something definitely to continue to watch as, Chad Ryland, he's definitely on a bubble. Definitely on a bubble for sure. And if Joey Sly can continue to be perfect and make consistent field goals, even if they're not as far as Chad Ryland, he's definitely going to make the roster over him. So what are your guys' takeaways from day one of mandatory minicamp? You guys let me know in the comment section below. What I will say, too, is a little bit of news came out. The Patriots were supposed to practice Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. They're going to be canceling Tuesday's practice in order to split groups up. I think it was in like 4 or 6 different groups, and they're all going to go out, team bonding, go into the community of Boston and do some different things. So instead of 3 practices, we're getting 2. What I will say, too, is Wednesday is Tom Brady's induction ceremony. I'm actually traveling to Boston to cover that for you guys. So I'm not sure when I will be dropping the recap for day 3 of minicamp, but just know it will be happening. I'll cover it. And of course, I'll do like winners and losers from minicamp also. So make sure you guys drop below in the comment section what your overall thoughts and takeaways were from day 1 of minicamp. And of course, like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel for all of your New England Patriots news. But most importantly, guys, never forget, go Pats.